And we are live. Welcome. Welcome everybody to the February Q&A for the Breath Club on Patreon. If you are not a member, what are you doing? It's the most fun place to be on the internet. This is my Breathwork Club. It started back in 2020, back when being a breathworker was a very difficult thing to do, especially, hey, let's all get together and breathe in a room. So we took it to Patreon, and we have an amazing group of people. Many questions today, so I'm looking forward to getting to your questions. Thanks so much for joining me today. Looks like I already have a comment over here. We're going to get into it. Basically, this is a place where each month we get together and I answer questions for those people who are in the Breath Club. Stick around. You might learn something. There's always some fun things to come up. And so if you're here, let me know where you're coming from. And I'm excited to get into this. So we have multiple questions here. James actually is one of the questions. So it looks like James made some comments here. So I just want to maybe read a little bit more. He says, the reason I asked that question earlier is sometimes I do a slower version. Okay, so let me actually get to James. James, I'll just answer your question first. James, I believe your question was signs of overbreathing. If you're here with me right now, go ahead and let it be known. So I think you were looking for what are signs of overbreathing. You were doing, from what I remember on your message, you showed me a picture of, okay, good. Thanks so much. You showed me a picture of one of the things here on the Breathwork channel where it was like coherence breathing, where it's that's one of the cadences where you're breathing in for 4 and you're breathing out for 6. So his question was, what are signs of over breathing? And he's adding here, he says, the reason I asked that question earlier is because sometimes I do a slower version of Wim Hof breathing. It's not what my body needs. It's not what my body needs. I become heightened, so my skin can break out, and I trigger my immune system. I'm not 100. Okay, let's see. I'm not sure if I'm following. You do a slower version of Wim Hof breathing. It's not what my body needs. I become heightened, so my skin can break out. I trigger my immune system? ? Your channel is flying. Well, yeah. We love all the cool things that we're doing here on the Breathwork channel. It's a total system reboot, a total channel reboot. If you've been here for a while, and thanks so much for sticking with me over the past few years, James. This channel started in 2018, and back then it was just a Wim Hof focus that I had, and it was just I was doing all these different trainings and doing all these different things, and so a lot of times I would talk about whatever was on my mind at the time. I talk about fasting. One of my most successful videos on this channel is about kava. I've done quite a few videos on kava. I'm a big fan of that. And for some reason, people think that because I like kava, I should like kratom. And it's like, it couldn't be further from the truth on that. So he says, okay, so what are some basic signs of overbreathing is basically the question. And so let's get into that, James. So I appreciate that question. And if you are interested, for anybody who's watching, if you're interested in asking more questions, if you're interested in access to my full catalog of guided breathwork sessions from all sorts of different styles, different techniques, that is on the Breath Club. You can just go to Patreon, look for Jesse Coomer, or just look for the Breath Club, and you can find access. Actually, right after this live session, where I'm going to switch over to a Zoom where all of us get together every month for guided breathwork sessions. So, all right, what are signs of overbreathing? Well, a few signs that you are overbreathing. One is that, first of all, let's sort of just define what that means. What does it mean to overbreathe? Well, first and foremost, it means you're probably breathing. You're breathing faster than what is optimal. Okay. And so for some people, it's going to vary as far as what that breaths per minute should be. All sorts of people ask me all the time, how many breaths per minute should I take? And the reality is that every human being is slightly different. Our physiologies are different. So I generally don't like to get into trying to, say, hey, everyone comes off a conveyor belt and you're all like this. But it is clear that it's very common that a person is overbreathing whenever they're having certain symptoms. So One of the symptoms of overbreathing is feeling lightheaded or spacey, having difficulty concentrating, having a difficult time sort of staying focused. Now, there are multiple reasons why this might happen, but that is a common thing when it comes to just regular overbreathing. And this is generally caused by a few things. The most common reason why people will overbreathe throughout the day is because of dysfunctional breath mechanics. So, what this means is when we're born, we generally have perfect breath function. So, it's just like, I'm sitting in a chair and, we all have to fight this because of our sedentary lifestyles, or especially compared to our ancestors. We have to fight this where you have our mobility suffers, right? So your ability to do a squat or your joint rotation, all these different movement things, they suffer as a result of habitual maybe motions that are outside of what are optimal, or just habitual just laying around or sitting around. Like I sit at a desk a lot. I've written multiple books. These are not all my books, but this one here is. A few of these are the translations into other languages. But when you do a lot of sitting, we know that our mobility will change, right? A lot of times a person may have anterior pelvic tilt. Sometimes we call this lower cross syndrome. We nowadays we seem to have more issues with our upper posture, especially underdeveloped postural muscles, overdeveloped or shortened muscles up here. Now, there are people that have debates on that topic, and I'm not really here to talk about that so much. But when it comes to breathing, it's very similar. So when we're born, we are, with very few exceptions, we are perfect breathers, right? So what that means is that the right muscles are firing at the right time, and we are breathing according to the metabolic need that we find ourselves in. So you're not huffing and puffing, you're not all these things, right? And so over time, what happens is that you will see some dysfunction, right? And so what are some signs of this? Well, first and foremost, if you get it in one of my books, or if you go to a person who is trained in breath work, one of the things you want to do is have them test a few things. Now, one of the classic tests that you're going to find, a lot of people like to do the Bolt score or a CO2 tolerance exhale test. I prefer the exhale test. This is the one that my breath workers use in my school. This is the one we teach because I think it's harder to mess it up and it's easier to use, regardless of which one you do. That is one way of determining what we might consider to be our CO2 tolerance. Now, there is a lot of oversimplification in the world of when we talk about CO2 and CO2 tolerance. There's a lot of oversimplification. But if you find that you have low CO2 score, it's likely that you have habituated a breathing pattern that is over breathing. Now, why might that happen? For multiple reasons. One is that our brains are predictive organs. So we are constantly predicting, we are constantly reacting, right? And so if you are a person who lives in a high stress situation a lot, if you are constantly under pressure, maybe you just notice the news a lot, all right? I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day. I was like, what would you give to go back to 2010? I don't even know. Like, I really don't even know what was happening in the news in 2010, but it was nothing compared, like absolutely nothing compared to what's happening now, right? So just simply having stress in your life can change the way your brain is predicting your metabolic needs. So it can make you overbreathe. Dysfunctional breathing patterns tend to do that as well because they're not efficient in promoting that breath, that gas exchange. So there's a lot of reasons why it might happen. Some of the symptoms might be, though, chronic fatigue. Some of the symptoms might be, and when I say that, I don't mean like there's some people that have that as like a diagnosis. I'm not meaning that like you're chronically fatigued. I mean, I just mean you're tired a lot. It may be when you're overbreathing Because we're going to remember when you breathe faster, this is one of those signals to your nervous system to activate your energy channels, right? So by that, I mean your sympathetic nervous system. So, okay, so you're blowing through a lot more adrenaline. And so it may be that you fatigue quickly. You are the person who needs to have coffee in the afternoons, or, even, I mean, I love coffee. I'm a big fan of coffee, but it's a person that's like, I crash a lot, right? And this is just because you're burning hot, you're breathing fast, right? So you're over breathing, and that causes, there's signals that you're sending back to your nervous system. We need to stay active. We need to have more energy. We need a adrenaline dump. So those are some things that you might notice. And the thing about over breathing is that most of my clients that come to me with over breathing don't realize they're doing it. And most of my clients have a high level of stress that they're walking around in every single day, and they don't realize it until we start working together. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't realize I was carrying around all that stress all the time. And it's just because there's so many different layers to what happens when you're just breathing faster than you would have to. So he says, okay, so James says, sometimes I feel I go too deep during a session, but today I did your session on YouTube and it felt great. Thank you for your explaining for your time. Well, hey, you're very welcome, James. And it's because my sessions are the best. I mean, simple answer. It's not teasing. Hey, which session did you try? Actually, I have quite a few sessions here on YouTube, but the vast majority of my sessions are in the Patreon club. There's like over 100 of them now. 6 years. Next month will be 6 years of the Patreon club. That's crazy. I can't believe it's lasted this long. It's absolutely amazing. So, hey, thanks for that question, James. All right. So we also have a question from Tatiana. And her question is all about coming back from illness. And I don't know about you, but there was a really bad, nasty cold that went around. I think it was global. And it was one that put people into a particular condition where it was just difficult for them to get out of it. I think I know one of my clients caught it and it lasted 3 weeks. In this particular client, it was especially bad because he's suffering from a lung disorder. And so how do you come back from illness? What is the way you come back from illness after that? How do you get back into breath work? Now, Tatiana's question was specifically focused on getting into more altered state breath work. Sometimes we call it the conscious connected breath work. So she's in the Patreon club, so there's a lot of blissful breath work sessions there. One of the things that I'm glad you brought this question up, Tatiana, because one of the things that can happen is a person can cause themselves a lot of harm if they jump back into like more of an active breath work really quickly, especially after a cold. Now, this is for a few different reasons. One is that some people still practice altered state breath work with just mouth breathing only. Now, if you have been following my work over the years, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do nasal only. Now, that makes it difficult if you're coming back from a cold because, hey, this is where we get all stuffed up. But if you're doing it with mouth breathing, you can really exacerbate some of the inflammation in your bronchi and your bronchioli that can cause you to have extended periods of time where you have issues, right? Where you're having more inflammation, where you're extending the time you're suffering from the cold, you're slowing down the recovery process. On the flip side, if you're like me and I only do altered state breath work nasally, this is for multiple reasons, but it can be like, well, hey, am I ever going to get back? Am I ever going to be able to do another session again? Because it takes some time. So I always recommend practicing slow breathing. Now that's just in general. So slow breathing of 6 breaths per minute or slower. Some people would go a little bit faster, but in general, I'm looking for heart rate variability benefits. So I'm wanting to get that 6 breaths per minute, somewhere around 5-ish seconds in, 5-ish seconds out. And what I would recommend is to try to develop a small amount of air hunger. So in the language of breath school, we would call this the CO2 focused awareness exercise. I know I named all of the exercises. They're not incredibly flashy. It's not like dragon's breath or so. Those are really awesome names. But whenever I was naming our exercises in the language of breath, I was a little bit. I mean, what I was. I'm a recovering English professor. What do you expect? So doing something where you're adding a little bit of CO2, right? So basically you're slowing it down. What that will do for most people is it will open up your sinuses. And so you'll start to notice, and it feels so good whenever you're doing it. So air hunger normally doesn't feel good, but especially when you're coming out of an illness, doing some HRV or some coherence breathing and developing a little bit of air hunger, opening up those sinuses can really be beneficial. Another thing that I advise people is using the Buteyko nasal clearing exercise. Now, the problem with this exercise is that you have to do it quite a few times, especially if you're really coming through, you're getting over something. And it's not something that's like, okay, as soon as you do it, you're clear the rest of the day, right? So taking decongestants and things like that, which I'm not totally against, by the way. Those are great because they last all day. Doing the Buteyko nasal clearing exercise, you do need to redo it multiple times, probably throughout the hour, right? So, and if you're not familiar with that, you hold your breath, you look all the way up, and you look all the way down, you look all the way up, you look all the way down until you can't hold your breath anymore. And then you slowly inhale through the nose, and you're going to notice that it clears your sinuses. Maybe not on the first try, but usually after 3 or 4 tries, you're absolutely clear. Now, for me, most of the time by the second try, I'm absolutely clear. Not because I'm special, but usually it works really fast on me. For other people, it doesn't work quite as quickly. So, so that's one of the things. Now, Tatiana was wanting to get back into some blissful breath, and this is something where you really want to focus on that nasal health for as until you can really get back into it. Now, one of the things that I recommend a person do is zone 2 cardio, nasal only, and that really helps to expand and open up those sinuses. So, Tatiana, I would recommend doing those. Go for a brisk walk, nasal only, and then this part of my beard got in my mouth, I think. Well, that's awkward. I picked it out, but now I feel like I need a drink of water. Anyway, that's what I would do, Tatiana, and I would just take my time, and this is what I always do when I catch a cold. You just take your time coming back, and remember that the breathwork techniques and sessions that actually are actually the most beneficial for your overall health and wellness are usually the ones that are slow and boring. And so getting into the coherence breathing, getting into that CO2 tolerance focused awareness exercise, just doing the awareness exercise, stuff like that is going to actually do you the most benefit in the long run. I know one of the reasons why, Tatiana, why you want to do some altered state breath work. And for anybody that's out there, one of the greatest reason for altered state breath work is to cut through anxiety, to help us deal with emotions and things like that. And I get that. But that's where the awareness exercise and really the awareness exercise can be really helpful as well. So using your interoception, giving yourself a little bit of grace as you come back from this cold. And before you know it, you'll be doing the listening exercise. You'll be doing altered state quickly. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. We got a few things over here. Let's see here. I want to make sure to get through everybody's question who is in the Patreon club first. Let me know where you're from. Please click like if you can. I appreciate it. And hey, let me know what's happening on the channel. What do you watch on the channel? We've really rebooted the channel. It used to not be called the Breathwork Channel. So we recently rebooted the channel. I have been on YouTube since 2018. Many of my early videos I've taken down, and it just all in the purpose of the reboot. One day I was like, man, wouldn't it be great if I could make a channel like a network, like the Breathwork Channel? And I was like, there's no way that's not been taken. It was not taken. And so here we are. And so we're about everything that is breath work. So if there's something you like on the Breathwork channel, let me know today here in the uh, in the chat. Also, tomorrow is our Coherence Saturday, so it's a long live feed. So come drop in, do some coherence breathing for your health. Have it running in the background just so you can peek. Oh yeah, and I need to do that coherence breathing. Sundays we actually have these atmospheric videos now. I don't know if you're a fan of atmosphere videos where you just kind of put it on your TV and it's kind of like you're next to a river or something like that. We have those as well. But now on the Breathwork channel, they have a breathing bubble, just a little something to remind you, right? So they have the nice music and the atmosphere, but a little something to remind you to breathe. And it's set to coherence frequency or the coherence cadence. So things like that. Let me know what you think about those. Eric asked a question. Eric says, "Hey, I keep yawning when I'm doing breath work. What gives? Why do I do that?" Well, this can be for a few reasons, Eric. One could just be that you're actually tired. Okay. And a lot of times, what happens is a person will have an incredibly stressful day and you're actually really tired, but you're also wired. And then you do a breathwork session and you calm yourself down a little while. And then, you've shifted. It's not necessarily usually it's not necessarily that okay now we're signifying a shift to the parasympathetic nervous system, but it can be that. The other thing is that when you are working with your blood gases, one of the reflexes that your unconscious processes have, your nervous system has, is to try to balance your blood gases. So that's one theory, is that's why we breathe, or that's why we yawn when we do breath work, especially altered state breath work. So the style where I call it superventilation. This is the style where we do continuous conscious connected breath work, is something sometimes we call it as well. So yeah, Eric, that would be why. I want to make sure I answer your question though. I remember, Eric, for some reason I don't feel like I wrote down your entire question, so bear with me, guys. I just want to make sure I answer Eric's question in completion. Eric is one of my on the breath club. He's one of our higher level patrons, and I really do appreciate it. Your monthly subscription really helps a lot in making this channel. It is not easy to do this content, especially now, takes an enormous amount of time. And so that's time that I could be doing other things, but I'm trying to I'm working with James. I don't know if you've seen James in some of our sessions. He does our Sunday night live breathwork sessions, and I'm working with a whole team now. We're trying to make this channel the greatest breathwork focused channel on YouTube. And who knows where we'll go with this. So if there's any suggestions, if there's things that you want to see later, let us know, especially if you're in the Patreon club, because you're really helping me do this. So why do you, yeah, basically he says it usually starts as soon as like 30 to 45 seconds into a session. And he says it happens usually 3 times in a 5-minute session. Okay. Yeah. So basically the yawn thing, most of the time, I mean, there's multiple explanations as far as why we yawn when we do superventilation breath work. But one of the reasons why I think it's so common, especially in people who have high stress lives, is just the fact that you've finally kind of broken through that rumination, and that sometimes we call it the dopamine feedback loop. And now you're able to be a little bit more calm, and it's just sort of a natural thing. Yawning is one of those things where it's sort of a mystery, because there's so many different reasons why we possibly might yawn. Eric, thank you so much for that question. All right, so those were the questions from the Breath Club this month. Let's see, what do we got going on here? Moose Man, won't very active breath work add stress to someone already stressed with illness? Yeah. So especially this is one of the biggest problems I see in the world of breath work today. We have a lot of breath workers who have no idea what they're doing. And here's the thing, I'm not meaning to puff up my chest and brag on myself, but I have been doing this longer than most people who are doing this. And whenever we started, I remember when all this started, especially in this big boom. The big boom started somewhere around 2015, 2016, as actually right whenever I got it. Actually probably didn't really explode until 2020, but I started professionally working with clients and doing workshops and events in 2016. And I was really hoping that we would have really high standards for breath work. And sadly enough, it's something that you get a lot of people who have maybe great videography skills, great marketing skills, and maybe they have a big heart and they really want to do something good for people, and they just don't know what they're talking about. So what happens often is that you'll hear all sorts of advice. And the reality is, you're right, Moose Man, that when it comes to when you're sick and when you're ill, doing superventilation breath work is not a great thing. Okay. And this is where people misunderstand research. They misunderstand there's things that get passed around in the breathwork circles. It's just like the things, if enough people are saying it and they've been repeating it long enough, somehow now it's true. And even if there's a misconception or something that's a falsehood, if enough people say it and enough important people seem to say it, now it's true. And the reality is that superventilation breath work with breath holds and all these things, they do not cure a cold. It's not like they don't let you change how your nervous system or your immune system works. There's different ways that it does affect your secondary immune response, but it doesn't make it so that you don't have a virus that's alive in your body anymore. Okay. And so that's one of those big misunderstandings. So when you're sick, slow, low, if you can breathe through your nose, great. If you can't, try to figure out a way so that you can make it so that you can breathe through your nose. And again, I am not against using things like, for instance, I'm a big fan of the neti pot. I am okay with my clients using for short durations of time things to clear your sinuses, using medicines and things like that over the counters and prescriptions, as long as you're being responsible with it and you're already healthy enough to do it, for short periods of time, fine, do it. So you're continuing to breathe through your nose and you're enhancing your ability to recover and be relaxed, as opposed to huffing and puffing through your mouth and exacerbating inflammation throughout your system. So how about that altitude sessions? I'm not sure, Prog John, I'm not 100% sure what you mean. How about that altitude sessions? If you want to clarify, I'd be happy to try to answer your question. James says, like and share. Yes, please like and share. Our channel is all about getting quality breathwork out there. We've got 2 major shows right now: Breathwork for Beginners on Tuesdays with James. My show is Breath Lab, where I'm explaining the science of breathwork. So basically, I'm just reading scientific papers, which has actually been kind of a surprise lately, because what's so weird about reading scientific papers is that you put these videos up and all it is, hey, this is what the study showed. And people act like you're taking a stand, like you're against something. The biggest one recently, there was one about, and it blew my mind. That's why I knew it would be a good study to cover, because I thought, wow, people need to hear about this. There was a study that I did that came out like 2 weeks ago, and it was about humming not increasing HRV in this one study. So they compared slow breathing and then slow breathing with humming, and they didn't see a major change when they added humming. And it blew my mind because I love humming. I add it to a lot of my sessions. I'll probably have it in the Patreon club here in a little bit whenever we do our breathwork session. And people acted like somehow I was trying to say we should never hum. They kept on trying to educate me as far as like, yeah, well, HRV isn't everything. What about the vagus nerve? It's like, it blows my mind sometimes. Like, by the way, when you measure vagal activation, you're using HR. That's like the easiest way. Like, there's so many things. Anyway, we've been having a lot of fun though. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for your likes and your questions and all those things. It really is great. What's funny is like the ones that are surprising and that are like, hey, this didn't do something. Those are the ones that get the most views. And then there's these ones that I'm like, oh man, people need this information. Like there's this one study that came out late last year in 2025 about slow breathing and its effect on chronic pain and PTSD. And I was like, people need to know about this. It did all right. Like not many people saw it. But you know, it's so funny because I don't know, you can't predict what people are going to like. Let's see here. Um, the long hours of sessions and the atmosphere music, I just play and listen. Hey, that's the beauty of it, James. That I myself am the type of person, like on a weekend or something like that, I'll put on, there's these atmospheric channels, and I've just always really liked them ever since COVID. You know, I was like, yeah, I kind of like having just something, you know, beautiful and maybe some nice music. And so I was like, what wouldn't this be awesome to have as just a little reminder for breath, right? Sort of to have a nice atmosphere, a nice space, just to, hey, guess what? I'm interested in my health. I'm interested in my mindfulness practice. I'm interested in my breath work practice. I'm gonna have this on in the background. The music's nice, and there's a breath bubble to remind me to maybe do a few breaths of coherence breathing. So I'm glad you like those. They've been really fun to make, and I actually enjoy them. So Sundays, every Sunday we come out with a new one, and then we also do those long ones that James, and I appreciate you mentioning this. We do a long live, so we do a live stream on Sundays. It's called Inner Atmospheres. That's the series that we produce on Sundays, and it's just multiple atmospheric things, and I think every single one of them they're almost 3 hours long. And it's just, you just throw it on there, nice music in the background. It's kind of a cool scene. And, you know, it gives you a little reminder and say, hey, you know, might as well breathe a little bit. So let's see here. Moose Man, thank you so much for liking the science analysis videos. So that's the Breath Lab. So what we're doing is we're making a network. So it may be something where we have more people join, more people be on the channel and have different shows. It's not just me anymore. So which is really cool. I love collaboration, and so it's a lot of different series and different things that are coming for the channel. And so we're in our first year of really making it happen. So thank you for every single like, every comment, every share that you do on any one of these videos. Every time you watch a video all the way to the end, thank you. Let's see here. Prog John says, I asked you about going to Taos, New Mexico next month, but higher. Oh, oh my gosh, John. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, wow. So yeah, you actually asked the question a long time ago. Thank you for putting up with me, John, by the way. See, so everybody, just so you know, so John, I will see John probably in 30 minutes at the breathwork session that we do in the Breath Club. So let me tell you, John, I'm going to answer your question as best as I can now. And if not, you can just say, hey, that was the worst answer. When you see me in the Zoom in just a little bit, you can say, hey, that wasn't even close to an answer. You absolutely have every right to do that. So John is actually, yeah, thank you so much for reminding me, John, because it is sometimes difficult to get all these written down. So thank you. All right. So John is going, he lives in Houston. He lives in Texas. He loves the heat, right? Don't you? You love the heat, John. So he's going to a higher altitude. How can I prepare for the altitude? So here's the good news and the bad news. Okay. That's a no. That's a no for the heat. The good news and the bad news when it comes to altitude training. Now, here's the thing. I have published multiple books in the field. Well, 2 books that are major works in the field of breath work, A Practical Guide to Breath Work, and then The Language of Breath. Back whenever I published A Practical Guide to Breath Work in 2020, I believed that using breath holds and so superventilation and breath holds, I believed that you could get similar, if not the same results as a person going to high altitude. And this is because at the time, that was kind of the pervasive wisdom. There was some scientific evidence that seemed to hint that we could. And so I believe that. By the time I got to The Language of Breath, this one here, that was published in 2022 or 2023, the research didn't look as good, but we still wanted to believe. And so I was like, okay, so there's some things you can do to help you. Now it just doesn't look good, right? As far as preparing for high altitudes, as far as what we used to think, okay, do those breath holds, do the over breathing, like the Wim Hofs and all those other things. And they people still make that claim. So let's see here. I'm sorry, I had a message. I have to look at my messages right now because my son is on the bus. So I always have to, this is the time of day. So, and so Mooseman asked, will I do a revision of my first book? I actually have, here's the funny thing. Okay. I was thinking about doing a revision of the book, of my first book. And then I was like, no, I don't have time. And then guess what happened? Lightning hit my brain. And then I have another book that I'm writing right now. I had no plans. And actually, if you're in the Patreon club, I started this year in January. I was like, hey, this is one of my first years. I'm not going to write a book. There's no books happening. I'm just going to focus on bringing breathwork to the world. And then what happened before the end of January, I had a book hit my brain, and I'm planning on releasing it probably in May. That's how fast this book has come. And it's more of a rant. It's less of a researched thing. It's more of like, hey, listen, I don't want to give it away yet, but it's coming. All right. So so John, here's what I would recommend you do. And also because I understand and I know a little bit about your like your where you are physically and health wise. So here's what I would highly, highly recommend to do. Really, really focus on breath mechanics. Okay. And when I say focus on breath mechanics, definitely work on that breath wave, right? So work on your breath wave, but also work on strengthening those breath muscles. Now, I think you have the Language of Breath online course. I think you do. If you don't, I know you have this book because I signed it. I signed it when you came to Wisconsin. In this book, I cover a technique called the reverse straw technique. Okay. The reverse straw technique. This is going to do a lot for you. Okay. So the reverse straw technique is where you purse your lips and you empty out all the air. So empty out all the air, and then you purse your lips, and then you inhale. And I mean, you're creating a lot of resistance. So right in our Patreon club, there are 2 sessions called Warrior Lung. So there's Warrior Lung 1 and Warrior Lung 2. You have access to those. I would recommend those as well. Now, those are more, there's some bliss involved, but you're going to work out all those muscles. If you're watching this and you're like, dude, I wish I could access these. First of all, they're in the Patreon club. It's only $5 a month. Second of all, if you buy this book, there's like a free downloadable at the end. You can download all these sessions, like an enormous amount of sessions. So if this is something that's interesting to you, right? But Warrior 1 and Warrior 2, what I need to do is do another Warrior, like a real good work. Okay, so March, this is the idea. March, we're going to get a really good workout, breathwork workout in, right? But what you need to do is really work out those breath muscles. And the reason for this is because while we cannot actually increase hemoglobin in the blood using breath holds, like we used to think we could, and oh man, I sure do wish we could. While we can't necessarily do that, one of the things that we can do is we can work on the endurance of the muscles that it requires to take full deep breaths. So that when you do go to this change in altitude, those muscles will not fatigue. And so, or at least they'll fatigue more slowly. and you're going to be able to take deeper, fuller breaths as you go instead of faster breaths. So one of the dangers of going to high altitudes is that a person will start to take faster breaths, not deeper, fuller breaths. They'll take faster breaths because they'll have breath mechanics that will fatigue. They'll start relying on their accessory breathing muscles as opposed to their primary breathing muscles. And before you know it, yes, in the moment, you're moving more gas, but you're not actually improving your gas exchange or your oxygen uptake. And you're cranking up your sympathetic nervous system, which is already going to be a little higher, just letting you know, when you get to a higher altitude. And that is because your brain's saying, hey, there's not as much air, that's in this air, or no, there's not as much oxygen in the air. So it's picking that up. And so it's trying to make you breathe faster. You want to breathe slower, lower, and more calmly. And the best thing you can do is prep those breathing muscles for that. The other thing you can do also when you get there is do a long breath hold. So this is where you get to do, if you want, you can do superventilation when you're there, not because you're hyperoxygenating your blood and all these weird misconceptions that somehow have pervaded. Like I still hear people talk about, oh, whenever we do hyperventilated breath work, we're hyperoxygenating. No, not because of that. But because what we're doing is we're throwing off some CO2 so we can take that long breath hold. The long breath hold does increase your oxygen carrying capacity for a few minutes. Okay. And the beauty is, I mean, it depends on the person, but it's a little while that you'll actually be able to improve your oxygen carrying capacity. Not because it's improving hemoglobin, increasing hemoglobin, but it does increase your red blood cell count due to your spleen and whenever you become hypoxic. That will help you to feel better in the moment. And you can do that multiple times in a day, right? Now, you don't have to do superventilation in order to get those long breath holds if you focus on long breath holds. But the superventilation beforehand, first of all, I know you like superventilation. Nothing wrong with that. Also, it does allow us to get a little bit more hypoxic when we take those longer breath holds because it allows us to hold our breath for longer than if you're just going to go with a stacked breath hold. Okay. So having that strategy to prep and then having that strategy when you're there is going to help you a lot. Lastly, when you're there, take lots of breaks, especially on the first day or two, because that's whenever the vast majority of that adaptation is going to happen. Usually it takes a day or two to start to notice a change in how you feel in that new altitude. And it's okay. All right. The fact that sometimes whenever I give people like sort of just the honest truth about the limitations, because there are limitations in breathwork. And I know you're not upset about that, but I'm speaking to everybody here. One of the things that I don't like is that people act like because I'm not saying, oh, just go out there and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not over promising somehow, like, I don't know, I'm taking something away from breath work. No, that's not what it is. I just want you to have the most accurate and most, I want to give you the best possible expectation so that when you go out there, if I were to overpromise and you were not to have those results, then maybe you might think, oh, there's something wrong with me. And that's not what it is. Right. I've been given all those overpromises multiple times in my career. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And I don't ever want to relay, bad information or overpromise things. So I hope that helps. And if not, let me know, because we're going to see each other probably in about 15 minutes at the monthly breath party. Rusty Games MC says, just remember, oxygen is the leading cause of rot in veggies and fruits and iron. That's true. That is true. It oxidation. Imagine what it's doing to your body. Yeah, we don't want that oxygen in there. It is funny. One of the videos that I get the most comments on, I did a video. This is back whenever my beard was really long. I did a video, it's like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And actually, Rusty, I think you remember this one, where I reviewed Greer Childers. She did this weight loss video program where she said you're going to lose inches on your waist, and it's because we're using oxygen. We're going like she has this really over the top, it's like lion's breath, but like extreme. And she makes all these claims as far as, okay, you're pushing all this oxygen in your body, and oxygen is flammable. And because oxygen is flammable, that means it burns things. And we want to burn calories. So therefore, if you do this thing, you're burning something because you're getting more oxygen and that burns calories. It's this like most ridiculous line of logic, of just non-logic, that I've ever heard. So I did a review on that, and I still get hate mail every day. Like it's probably like people comment on that. I would say maybe not every day, maybe every week, someone comments on that. I had someone not too long ago say that I have no class. And I'm like, listen, I'm just debunking something that is so obvious. It was just a fun video, but it was like such a obvious thing. So there's so many myths about oxygen. So yeah, it's true. It's engagement. So yeah, I guess thanks to all the people who have given me hate on those. Every time you comment, you're letting the algorithm know that the video is entertaining, or it's, it's something that made you want to take action. So I guess in that way they are I guess they're helping the channel. I don't know. But I would much prefer kind messages of like, hey, this was very helpful. No. And actually, I think Greer Childers made a comment on it at some point, and she sent me her phone number. And I was like, first of all, I don't know if this is a real Greer Childers, but I'm not just going to randomly call somebody on the phone just to, I guess, talk and have her. I don't know what she was going to say to me. Maybe I'll put that. I'll post that on our community page, and you guys can check it out sometime. But it was a lot of fun to make that video. And the reason I knew about the video is because it came out in the 90s, and my mother-in-law had done the video, like a VHS series. She had actually done it. And my wife mentioned, have you ever heard of this? And I was like, what? And so it was just a lot of fun. And I was going to get a leotard and all that stuff and do like a whole 90s look, but it didn't work. Eric, good to see you, buddy. Hey, we talked about why we yawn, but just if you don't want to go all the way back, why we yawn, it's there's a lot of different reasons why you might yawn when you're doing breath work. One of the reasons is probably for most people is that you've changed state, right? You've been able to kind of break through some stress and anxiety, and that quick change in state can sometimes signal, and this is all theoretical, it can sometimes signal a yawn response. And then there's also some blood gases that are changing state as well. So, but hey, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank you so much. If you're watching our videos on the Breathwork channel all the way to completion, like literally that's like just, it's a huge favor to us. It's crazy how things like that make a big difference. Our goal is, we want to bring breathwork to the masses in a way that is practical, applicable, stuff that, you can share with people who, it doesn't matter what their background is, doesn't matter what, maybe they have beliefs or they don't have beliefs, or, any of those things. We want it to be something that applies to everyone, because breathing is your birthright. It's something that there are so many over the top claims made when it comes to this subject. And we're just trying to bring some truth and some goodness to the space where there's a lot of goodness already. So I'm so happy that our channel is growing, and I want to thank everybody here for just hanging out with me today. If you'd like to do some breath work and you'd like to get access to the Patreon club, I'd love to have you as a member. It's only $5 a month to get started. There's higher tiers, and you get more perks as you go up. But seriously, $5, buy me a cup of coffee every month and get access to an amazing group of people, a huge, growing, just absolutely gorgeous catalog of breathwork sessions. We have breathwork tips. We have all kinds of educational material in there as well. and the best, coolest people on the internet too. So anyway, thanks so much for sticking around. Every single month we do one of these, and I'm very, very happy to see all the names today. It says, thanks, Jesse. I love your passion for breath work. It's educational and needs to be taught. Top man. Thank you so much, James. And eventually I will get to that guided cold shower. It is not something I have forgotten. I promise you, my friend, it will be coming. And whenever it comes, maybe we'll premiere it and we'll just put, James, watch this. Like we'll just name the video James's cold shower video. Anyway, everybody, thanks so much. If you're in the Breath Club, I'll see you in 10 minutes. If you're not in the Breath Club, just go to Patreon, search for Jesse Coomer or search for the Breath Club. Join us today for $5. Even if it's just $5 for just today's session, it's worth it, but let alone all the other cool things that you get. So thanks again. I'll see you guys next month.